So we were just discussing amongst ourselves that it has been a great day so far with very interesting topics and great attendance. And this is the last, but definitely not the least of the panels of the day. Actually, this is a panel on one of the most interesting and critical topics, the impact of technology on shipping, on digitalization. So I would like to thank all the panelists for being with us. We have a great panel that is consisting of two ship owners who are, at the end of the day, the actual users of the technology on the ships, three classification societies who are providing guidance and support, and two technology providers. So this is a very comprehensive panel. And I would like to thank Erwin from Enesel, who is going to moderate the panel. I would like to say that it has been quite a pleasant task to coordinate all these very important people and all the divergent topics. So thank you, Erwin. And thank you to all of you for being with us. I will let Erwin now take over and introduce everybody. And again, thank you very much from my side.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas, for your very kind words. So we have here a panel with six panelists. So we have Mr. Konstantinos Chatzitolios, project development leader for Greece, Cyprus, and Malta for Bureau Veritas. Welcome, Konstantinos. We have Mr. Philip Hadjisoteriou, client relationship manager for Lloyd Register. Hello. We have. Sorry.
Hello.
We have Mr. Peter Michael Haddad, who is the general manager at OneNovation here in Limassol. We have Mr. Petros Achtypis, CEO of Prevention at Sea. We have Ms. Michela Schenone, Marine Digital Solution Manager at RINA, based in Athens. We have Dr. Oleg Kalinin, also my colleague at the board of the Cyprus Shipping Chamber here in Limassol, who is the managing director of Sovconflot Management Services in Cyprus. So hereby, thank you all for participating. We have had some discussions among ourselves. I mean, how we're going to start with this panel. So I would like to start with questions because we have 50 minutes and we have a lot of things to discuss. So I would like to start with Konstantinos. The question is, how is digital technology transforming the traditional ways of performing classification surveys?
Thank you very much, Erwin, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to take part in Capital Link Cyprus Shipping Forum and specifically this panel, which is more on the technology side. Because indeed we're going through a digital transformation. Industry 4 is changing shipping with capabilities that we didn't have before, like connected ships, the Internet of Things with access to even fully integrated systems, and maybe, at least to my opinion, the most important thing of all, the development of artificial intelligence. And certainly class societies have an important role to play in this digital transition, because from one hand, they need to adjust their operating mode to facilitate it, but also on the other hand, they need to make sure that it's done without any compromise to the safety of the crew of the vessel. So going straight to your question regarding classification surveys, indeed, better connectivity has given us the opportunity to perform remote surveys, which became necessary during the pandemic. And I would say they kept the industry running by this way. And what we actually see 1.5 years later is that remote surveys are here to stay. And for certain types of surveys, they can substitute well the surveyor's physical attendance by reducing also travel time and costs, and even being more energy efficient in that respect. But going beyond remote surveys, today we have a possibility, for example, to deploy robots like drones, ROVs, and crawlers to inspect difficult areas of the vessel, like the upper parts of cargo holds and cargo tanks, cross decks, and so on. Today, this is done with methods like staging, using cherry pickers, rope access, even rafting surveys. But these methods are more time consuming and are more prone to human error and open to accidents. So recently, we performed a proof of concept on board the 12-year-old Supramax bulk carrier, simulating exactly the requirements for a third intermediate survey. And we used a drone, a combination of a drone, crawler, and an ROV. And I was actually on board during this project. And normally, having also a surveyor's background, to be honest, in the beginning, I was a bit skeptical if we could really achieve the same level of inspection qualities we have with the other traditional methods. But to be honest, I was surprised positively by the quality that we got back from the robots, so the images and the videos. And now thinking as a surveyor and having all this kind of useful data at hand, you can focus more on doing your job at a safe distance and faster, rather than worrying of how to climb vertical ladders to complete your survey. This inspection was also done afloat in a ballast condition. So we used the ROV for the overall inspection of the ballast tanks. In this way, we avoided deballasting the tanks and using the ballast water treatment system. So basically, we even ended up with a more energy efficient inspection. But going even a step further, we can also combine this kind of inspection with robots, with AI technology, for the automatic detection of corrosion and even structural defects. So we have developed such AI software that can be used to support the decision of a surveyor during an inspection. Of course, this is not intended to substitute the judgment of the surveyor, but to help for better and faster decision making. Now, lastly, apart from the hull structure, we can also take advantage of the ongoing digitalization of machinery systems, and we're able to shift towards more optimized inspections, like predictive inspections. Because what happens in reality today is that the machinery survey system that we have is planned on a periodic basis and is prescriptive. So ships come in for survey on predefined dates, and surveyors use a prescriptive list that more or less remain the same throughout the life of the vessel. But this is not what is going on exactly on board the ship, because maintenance of ships is evolving from this kind of reactive maintenance to predictive maintenance, basically on the back of condition monitoring developments, vibration monitoring, and so on. And so we can shift to condition-based maintenance and take optimized maintenance actions and avoid unnecessary downtime. And these CBM systems are also fully online. So there was a discrepancy there. So from a class point of view, we're now evolving from a purely periodical survey scheme to a PMS survey scheme for machinery equipment, taking also into account condition monitoring data that can be done through an online platform with communication with the vessel CMMS. So to sum up, certainly digital transformation is leading also to more advanced, to my opinion, more efficient, certainly safer ways to perform traditional classification surveys.
Okay, Konstantin, thank you very much. I hope there will be a healthy discussion on many of those new technologies. So let's move to Michela. The question, Michela, is how can new technologies help ship owners operate more efficiently their fleets? And from your point of view, what are the key barriers in fleet digitalization, and how is it possible to overcome those?
Okay, thank you, Erwin, and really glad to be here in this panel to discuss. So, of course, as Konstantinos said, of recent times with this pandemic and also with the new upcoming decarbonization rules, we've seen a boost of the digitalization transformation. So with this pandemic, every side of our life has actually been moved on a digital side. Almost everybody now is working on Teams. We're doing conferences and panels remotely. And this new technology has actually helped us to continue our business and to be resilient. So in my opinion, all the technological improvements and developments should help in facing the upcoming challenges and regulation. So actually having the opportunity to stream the information from an asset which is traditionally far away from the management, because of course we are used to receive the information from the ships only once a day, for example, through noon reports. Having the opportunity to expand and implement a relationship of sharing information between the ship and the shore side can increase the transparency and really improve how the ship are operated. So, for example, I think about some compliance issues that may raise connected to the onboard logbooks. So as RINA, we started from a need of a customer who had big problems and big fees connected to electronic logbooks. And based on our experience, we had the opportunity to stream the information to shore. And this helps the company not only to keep always an eye and be aware of what's happening on board, but also on the crew side, they're actually happy to use such tools that help them in the daily work. It reduces the burden on board, and it actually creates a virtuous cycle between the onboard and the shore side, connecting them and having them working together in order to optimize the operations of the ship and actually achieve a more efficient fleet-wide situation. So on the other hand, I also have an example of a Cyprus-based really important company. So we are working with MSC Cyprus with the first tool that we have developed, which started to be as a performance monitoring system. But now we are expanding it in order to cover the topics that come every day as challenges for the company. So for example, after the sulfur cap, we started monitoring and streaming information from scrubbers to shoreside. So having the opportunity to reproduce the system also on shoreside gives the opportunity to be more proactive from the company side, the shore side, in helping and identifying criticalities before, let's say, a bad event, a critical event occurs. So this kind of tools should not be seen from the crew side only as a control of what they're doing, but really on something that can help them in operating the ship in the most efficient and to reduce the burden that they have. Based on our experience and my experience, actually, one of the first problems that come up with digitalizations and with the streaming of information to ship to shore, it's the hardware situation on board and the age of the ship. Because of course, when you install a performance monitoring system, you may need cabling, sensors, or also the PCs, the servers on board to be updated. So this led RINA to move to a more hybrid situation where we can, it's possible to actually use what it's available, so the noon reports, and to even extract some good information from that kind of reporting, of course, integrating it with different data sources. So as a classification society, we have the opportunity to put together information from different stakeholders and actually create added value. Another barrier may be, of course, the size of a company, because having more efficiency in a wider number of ships, for example, for MSC Cyprus, now we have more than 200 installations. Of course, even a 1% done 200 times has a really big, very big impact. So depending also on the size of the company, there may be a different different digitalization journey. In general, in my opinion, it's in order to have more efficient operations, the basic is, of course, to have the data. Without the information, it's not possible to optimize the processes. Of course, it's needed to have the correct tools to analyze the information, because on the other side, for some companies, we see that we have thousands of data. We have big data, but it's not easy to look at them in the correct way. So machine learning techniques can help, for example. But at the end, the most important part is actually to choose the correct partner and to have a partner that can add knowledge and experience, because the know-how in a company may not be enough. So also as a classification societies, we are looking outside to find the best partners to move in the next step of digitalizations ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much, Michela. I hope that people have made some notes, and later on we can ask some questions. So let's move to Philip. So Philip, the question that we have prepared for you is, you know, the decade ahead will be transformational. Shipping will harness this digitalization and turns to net zero. What are the key ingredients to maritime's digital journey, and how innovative technology can lead to a sophisticated class regime and services in the future?
Okay, well, thank you, Erwin, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here as well. Well, we already have systems harnessing data, and that is great for individual system maintenance, which relates to predictive maintenance. A few of us have touched on it already. But I wanted to focus a little bit on the concept of an all-inclusive approach of digitization, which we believe is a key ingredient. And this is sort of the importance of combined data analytics, which essentially brings, it means bringing together systems and platforms to offer a more holistic analytic and insight about the vessel's overall performance. And that can be applied in more than just the maintenance field, but with the objective to improve the overall efficiency for a vessel, which obviously then reduces its OPEX and carbon footprint. We've partnered with LR Insights, and this platform basically brings together multiple systems onto one platform to reveal unique interrelationships between these systems. I think that's going to be key going forward. Now, another thing is digital health management. DHM is a term that we are using in LR to describe digital technologies and systems that are used to gather data and insights on an asset's health, which incorporates basically digital twin technology. As you've probably heard, a digital twin is a dynamic digital representation of a physical piece of equipment or asset used in a business environment. And this, fundamentally helps operators improve aspects of their operational performance and maintenance regimes through the insights generated by the twins as part of this digital health management. An example of this is our recent approval in principle to provide structural health management of independent gas containment tanks using digital twin technology. This approval sets the manufacturer on a path to become a DHM provider to the maritime industry, whereby they can offer their customers the possibility to operate and maintain their ship's Type B gas containment tanks in an optimal, cost-effective way, whilst at the same time complying with classification and regulatory and statutory requirements. The aim is, for this individual case actually, is to develop a complete structural DHM system for LNG fuel Type B tanks which will be fitted on the first dual-fueled ultra-large container ships currently under construction. And this will assure structural integrity and safety in operation, as well as enhance the ship's operation and compliance performance. And I'll just give another example on this, because this is all sort of, coming together in the last year or two. There's another Chinese shipyard which has received approval in principle from LR for its VLGC digital ship design, which is the first of its kind in China. And the digital VLGC has an integrated data acquisition and processing platform. And it's basically equipped with multiple systems which ultimately give the crew on board the ship and onshore personnel the data to make effective and safe operational maintenance decisions whilst in operation. And these are all tools which can help ship owners improve overall vessel performance in a safe manner, reducing their energy consumption and ultimately simplifying ship management, which I think is important because obviously, as we keep developing all these new technologies and there's a bombardment of new acronyms and new exciting things, it just seems like it's an increase in everyone's sort of workload on board. Michela mentioned that as well, but I think the ultimate goal and what we should be looking forward to doing is simplifying things. And I'd like to finish on a note that to do that, ultimately, we as a maritime industry need to begin building trust around technology. And of course, part of our role as a classification society is to provide that assurance with a digital compliance framework. And that's one of the focuses from LR and why we've launched a maritime performance services hub in South Europe based in Athens to support our local clients in this digitization journey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Philip. So, Oleg, I would like to ask you. I mean, what is the latest on the SOFCOM fleet in terms of digital transformation and also in combination with what we have discussed now, what we have heard now from the class societies?
Yeah, Erwin, thank you very much. As mentioned already many times, after COVID outbreak, most companies were forced to further embrace digitalization to maintain daily operation. So we're doing in such way, but ability to access bridge systems and other shipboard equipment had been implemented prior to the pandemic on SCF fleet. But we continue with injection of operation technology governance tool being in progress across the fleet, with a view of controlling vibration monitoring, time charter party parameters improvement, bunker lifting module, fuel consumption optimization, propulsion, and onboard equipment usage. Our main target is to be able to have direct online overview of vessels' key operating parameters such as navigation, cargo sequence, propeller sleep, machinery, vessel performance, power with speed analysis, and the various trends of vessel performance. And it's already disclosed, and we will discuss further. Of course, we know advantages of such system. That's possibility to retrieve on 24/7 basis online data from ship sensors, ability to check vessels' key performance data from anywhere with internet access, provide quickly and accurate data, live and historical, benchmark vessels on same baselines data, not relying on human input data, allow creation of custom dashboard according to users' need, and enhance transparency with our customer, which is so important nowadays to be working so closely with charterer, and we're going surely to the situation when together with charterer we monitor vessel performance. All of us, we know various supplier tools which is available on the market. I just to mention a couple of them, but of course it's much more on the available, but in particular we have project with IB, FOS, Mallorca, Kuma, Nautical Lab, Green Stream. And we're busy with further upgrade of the systems on board, further testing of products. Yeah, I will stop on that stage, and maybe I will have chance to go more a bit later during our discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Oleg, thank you very much. So then I want to move to Peter Michael. So what do you believe, Peter, are the more important elements to enhance digital transformation in the maritime industry?
Yeah, so thanks, Erwin, and thanks for Capital Link and all the participants. It's a pleasure being on the panel. Yeah, so digital transformation, shipping is actually in the advanced stages of digital transformation. It's relatively new, so there's quite a few elements. But a few of them that I think are worth mentioning on this panel is one being planning and provisioning. So we've got this paradigm shift in the industry. And I'm not saying technology is shipping these days, but it's a massive element of it. So we have to, organizations have to adapt to this new mentality. You've got a multi-million-dollar asset, which is a very long-term asset, which is meeting the most rapid changing industry in the world. So you have to plan for that, and you have to change mindsets. And it's extremely important for organizations to accept this and to start taking action immediately. I give you a little example of a not maritime based, but one of the leading technology companies 10 years ago was planning 5 years ahead. They still do that planning today. It's 6 months ahead, but they also do planning twice a day. I'm not saying we're going to do planning twice a day in shipping, but that's just to give you the extreme scenario of where digital transformation is today in other industries. So it's essential for the organization and for the crew and for everybody involved to understand that you need to shift to another level in order to maintain this sort of technology change. It's also about the business operations and the physical asset itself. Ship owners, shipyards, they're constantly trying to understand, how can I provision this vessel to be technology ready, to be technology provisioned, so that I can hopefully have my vessel in the next 2 years provisioned when it's built, a new build, to be able to accommodate all the technologies that are coming and changing. You're not going to get it right. You're not going to plan it for the next 5 years because we don't know where it's going to go. But you're certainly going to have to try, and this is where the ship builders themselves are actually researching so much and trying to give so much advice into, okay, this is what you need to do. For example, a small example of not such new tech is the server room. The communications in server room is one of the biggest planning things now, with the cabling coming to the center and everything. So this provision, this planning is essential because you want your vessel to be able to adopt technologies. You can always apply new technologies to an existing vessel, but that brings up the return on investment question. Is it going to be worth it? Do I do it, or do I scrap it and go for a new vessel? So you want to know, like Oleg said, you want to know in real time what's happening. You need that infrastructure, and you need to plan for that as well. So another element which I think is equally as important is connectivity. We all know connectivity is the backbone of the digital transformation for a vessel. Always online, the data needs to go to the data center. It needs a connection to do that, especially if it's real time. It needs more than one connection. So connectivity is where our group is focusing a lot on, and the value that comes around it. It's not just about just getting a really big bandwidth. Don't get a 15 meg connection. It's about having that redundancy, because that 15 megabit connection can just drop off because the satellite or the lander station, it's raining somewhere. So you need to have that redundancy. Maybe for your long journeys, yes, you can have a multi-satcom, but also think of different technologies. When your vessel comes into port, 5G, it's one of the biggest things now. It's being used so much more than we ever expected, because remote maintenance is being such a big deal, and not just through COVID in general. So you always you think to yourself, okay, 5G has become one of the most cost-saving technologies that you can put on today, because you can do this remote maintenance. And when you have that 5G connection, you want to be able to have it all seamless. You don't want to have people on board switching and all that. So we're adopting our technologies to automatically switch. You can use that 5G connection and restrict it just for that remote maintenance, or you can have it as a backup when the vessel loses a SATCOM connection, or you can have it double up, this link aggregation, where you take all that connection, the 5G and the SATCOM, put it together and double up your bandwidth. So that's the important part, is to make sure that you use that connection properly, and you have that multi-WAN failover, link aggregation, whatever you want. So connectivity is always going to be a most important part, and I will mention it, but we won't talk about it. Autonomous vessels. When we get there, if we get there, connectivity is going to be the key element, right? As soon as that vessel goes offline, it's in the dock. It will have buffers, but connectivity is going to play a role. The last element I will mention is IT infrastructure. Again, one of our biggest focuses today is retrofitting vessels. We're doing over 50 vessels a month, retrofitting them with data centers, full rebuild. Even because of the IMO regulation, we're just replacing computers all the time to Windows 10. But it's more important on the planning side to make sure that your vessel's got the right infrastructure, because again, this is the backbone. Without the right infrastructure, you can't segregate your networks. You fall out of compliance because this network is not is contacting that one. So the IT infrastructure is absolutely essential, and it's really, really a big part of the planning, and a little bit harder to implement on the older vessels, because running cable on a which is a small element, running cable on an old vessel is quite a task. So the planning for the IT is for me the third element that I'd like to mention, and extremely important.
Okay, Peter Michael, thank you very much. So we will have questions. I will have some questions afterwards. I mean, not only to you, Peter Michael, but I mean to all the participants. So the next question is for Petros. Petros, can you provide some cases where you see these elements will take effect?
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Peter mentioned before three elements, just to summarize. He mentioned planning, connectivity, and IT infrastructure. Indeed, all of them are very, very critical and very, very important. And actually, I believe these are the foundation for the digital transformation in our industry. For sure, we need super fast connectivity. We need a powerful IT infrastructure, because these are the key elements in order to get data from ships. And that was the issue until recently, where all the decision making, let's say, was made mainly on board ships, where we could not get data from ships. And the transfer of data or ashore was taking a lot of time. Now, with all this infrastructure and connectivity and the new technologies, we can have real data on our hands, making us very, very making us very, let's say, making decisions at the right time. With no delays. And of course, we need all these elements in order to apply new technologies on board ships and in the industry in general that will disrupt the way things are done. For example, just to give an example from our side, we are collecting data from ships through electronic logbooks, which is only a small part of the infrastructure that we provide and the systems we provide and we apply on board ships. But moving towards and moving forward, we have data algorithms in order to provide companies with efficient screening We provide nice graphs, let's say, and statistics for database decision making, which was not the key, which was not the case, let's say, 20 years ago. And of course, analyzing all this data that we get at the moment from SIPs, we can provide a multi-level prevention system. And this is, again, very, very important because the people ashore at the company, they feel now confident that they get the right data at the right time, in real time, actually. And just to give you another example, we are running a pilot project at the moment with the Cypriot Deputy Shipping Ministry, with a project that has been funded by EU as well. And we have the great support by the minister, and we are very, very thankful for the last 2 years and the great support that we get from the people and the knowledge that they provide us in order to disrupt the way port control officers, for example, are getting data from ships. So instead of having people on board checking records, certificates, data, drills, something which is subject to inspection by all third parties going on board, we have a nice system where the port control officers now check the data remotely without being even the ship at port. And this saves time. We do not disrupt the seafarers from their daily work, because at the end of the day, seafarers, their main responsibility is to get the ship from point A to point B in a safe manner. We are trying to reduce administrative burden. We are trying to reduce bureaucracy. And of course, we need infrastructure, as I said before. And this is one of the challenges that we are facing at the moment. But we believe, with the great support of the ministry in Cyprus, who have a vision there, and we share the same vision with all the Cypriot companies, we feel that we will introduce soon a new system that will surprise positively the industry. Thank you.
Okay, Petros, thank you very much. So I think we still have some time left. So then I have actually a question for both Petros and Peter Michael. So, I mean, can you tell us what you think will further drive the digital transformation for the maritime sector, and what is coming towards us? What can we expect?
Petros, I'll start if you don't mind. Look, I think LEO, the low orbit satellites, is really going to become something interesting in maritime. So what they mentioned, Starlink, Elon Musk's SpaceX project, is going to be very interesting, and it's going to really shift the way things, how satellite communication is provided to vessels. You're talking about extremely low latency, high bandwidth, low costs, which is going to disrupt our industry's satcoms. So I'm really looking forward to it, because it's always bringing competition into an industry is always a very, very healthy thing. They're not maritime, they don't have the approval yet. And I don't think Elon Musk's interest right now is directly focused on maritime, but he has applied to enter the maritime. So that does mean that there is an interest there, but it's just not yet justified fully. And it doesn't need to. So it's going to be, I think, very, very interesting when they start penetrating that our market, and very healthy for ship owners, ship managers, because I think it will reduce SATCOM costs a lot. And the large organizations that have got big infrastructures, that have got non-agile infrastructures, will be forced to make a move and to be more agile. And yeah, I'll leave it at that, and I'll pass it over to Petro if he has anything else to add.
Well, I will try to be short. I believe that for sure the technology will bring new professions in surface. I believe that crew will still exist, either on board or ashore, but perhaps with different synthesis. perhaps we will see more people specialized in automations rather than an AB or Euler, for example. But still there will be a crew, I believe, somewhere in a data center ashore. And I think, in my opinion, the day is not far away where we will see at port a floating IKEA coming in, and we will be going there to get our stuff, and ships will be treated like a logistics center.
Okay, well, I mean, Peter Michael, I mean, what you said about Elon Musk, I mean, now applying for the maritime industry, and then listening to Petros talking about unmanned vessels, I mean, going to the ocean. I made here a comment. So according to Elon Musk, space is less complicated than the sea. So I'm pretty sure that seafarers will continue to be necessary on board of ships, if I'm not mistaken, yeah? So
yeah, I think the unmanned vessel is a long, if it's happening, it's a long ways. You know better with the operations that are needed on board. So
yeah, you know, ships are built to the very high standard, but things are always going wrong, unfortunately. You know, I mean, it happens to all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing to remember is that when we think of an autonomous vessel, an unmanned vessel.
Oh. Something is happening.
Somebody.
Sorry, did I lose?
Okay, can we continue, Nicolas?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So Peter, sorry. I mean, there was a technical. There was a problem with connectivity.
Yes, sir. That was my Bluetooth disconnected. Am I back online?
Okay. So let's move on. Then I have a question for Konstantinos, Philip, and Michela. So, what do you consider the biggest threat today for smart connected ships, and how are class societies helping ships owners to mitigate those risks?
Thank you, Erwin. Well, I think the biggest threat that we're facing today with the evolution of smart connected ships are cyber attacks. Everybody in the panel has discussed about data acquisition and data transfer, about systems being online. So you can imagine critical navigational equipment like the GPS, your AIS or your EGDIS, and even the maintenance system, PMS, and the condition-based maintenance system that we mentioned before. These systems, being online, can be corrupted or they can even be hijacked. And of course, this will have serious consequences for the safety of the crew. Not to mention, if we talk further in the future about autonomous shipping, imagine an autonomous ship being hijacked, and so that would be quite dangerous. So cyber attacks, I think, are the #1 threat right now. So we need to manage the cyber risk. I believe that if we take it from a high level standpoint, there are three main issues that we need to consider. First of all, we need to identify the right level of protection for the specific ship that we have, because you know, IMO's regulations are a bit generic. They apply to all connected assets, but there's no one size fits all in cyber protection. So determining an asset specific or a ship specific, in our case, cyber management strategy is key to limiting the cost, and also having the right safety measures and the right safety level for the vessel. And normally that should be done, should be achieved without even a specific cyber team, because not all shipping companies have such dedicated teams. And the third point is that we need to ensure that cybersecurity is maintained for all key stakeholders. So, as you know, cybersecurity introduces new stakeholders in the ecosystem. So you have cyber solution providers, IT consultants, and so on. they share data, sensitive data, through connected systems, and they should be secured in accordance to the IMO. So we need to be careful, and class societies are able to provide all the support needed for these main points above. We have dedicated rules, dedicated notations. We're able to help ship owners develop this required robust cyber management strategy. Thank you.
Okay, so Michela, because we are running out of time, 1 minute.
Okay, so of course I agree with what Konstantinos said. I'd like to add that we are also seeing the cyber insurance side. So of course, in order to, let's say, cope with cybersecurity breaches, problems, and so on, it's also possible to consider, and we expect to grow the cost of a cyber insurance. So that's something that Konstantinos hasn't considered, that I'd like to add. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Michela. Philip, 1 minute.
Yeah, thanks. Just talk quickly about digital systems being proven. So this may be done by demonstration of function. And what we want to do is obviously expand on this to include verification and validation with sort of like detailed pass and fail criteria. So just to give an example, in the physical world of engineering, you have a design of concept, you demonstrate that it meets the certain criteria, regulations, and then you test it to see if it performs as intended, and you continue to monitor that piece of equipment or structural section throughout its life cycle in the form of a survey regime. And there needs to be something equivalent of that in the digital world. The digital systems are being proven today by demonstration. So we're working with our partners to develop more complex functional requirements in these digital systems.
Okay, Philip, thank you very much. So I have the last question for Oleg. So Oleg, from a ship owner perspective, are there any other aspects of ship operations you can raise in connection to digitalization?
Yeah, thank you, Erwin. I will go quickly because lack of time, but what I would like to mention, things like demand for a crew mobile application. This is to assist our crew for more efficiently and more enjoyable way to manage employment. This application should have a range of features such as crewing and travel solutions, latest company bulletin, alert circulation, crew application, crew documents, training, etc. Another thing, remote technical assistance. Of course, all owners are doing such a feature with key suppliers, but this is, of course, our future. And our main contractor of machinery have nowadays the possibility to connect remotely to the onboard equipment and make adjustment when needed, control the vessel performance, equipment performance, make troubleshooting, make adjustment, and all of that is remotely. That's what we expand further on. As already mentioned again here, eventually the key point of any initiative in automation is process to ensure master no longer spend plenty time for manual input of data. Petros mentioned this about port activity monitoring, and we know about initiative in Rotterdam on Bain trial. This is always on board system. In general, always on board system enables captain to save up to 90% of his or her valuable time when filling a pre-arrival forms when entering a port. Consequently, the captain can focus on his main job, navigation and safety. So in short, AUB reduced the administrative burden on board by simplifying the port call administration to ensure the efficient data flow during a port call. Remote class surveys was discussed, I think, already enough. I just mentioned we still appreciate the different way of communication with all class society does now, because so easy we can invite a global network of experts from any of classification society. We can invite whoever the key person in the headquarters of any classification society. But he just mentioned, obviously, still survey may not be so simple, and we cannot do 100% remotely. So in particular cases, of course, we need combination of physical attendance and remote survey. And last but not least, I still will mention that we already touched upon about remote survey, that we have such way we reduce carbon footprints through less travel. We discussed between panelists as well. So this is important that all this travel to restricted area reduced now. If we can have lower risk from getting personnel to the work site, which is maybe not the most convenient place in the world, and some kind of even dangerous locations. So remote class survey is something we already succeed a lot, but it's way forward anyway. Thanks a lot. I will stop on this stage.
Okay, thank you, Oleg. Well, I mean, I made here some questions. I have 17 questions. I will reduce it to 2. So I have one question for you, Oleg. I mean, you were mentioning about benchmarking your data. Are you benchmarking also with the rest of the industry? And when you're doing so, I mean, do you think the data is reliable? Because I mean, we're doing the same here also. I mean, you know, I mean, in our company, and I often find that the data is not really reliable. You know, I mean, even coming from let's say qualified and serious providers. Yeah. So benchmarking is still not an easy task, and I think a lot can be improved over there. I mean, what is your view on that, Oleg?
Ship owners, so-called float, very much keen on benchmarking, very much. They use whatever opportunity to do benchmarking. We have this Boston Consulting Group, you know, these guys who are expert in benchmarking. We invite them basically every year and make consultancy in different areas, from technical performance, crewing performance. I understood what you said about reliability of data provided by other owners, but I think this is maybe natural for the starting point, but I think eventually we're living in such a transparent world that basically all of us, we prefer to provide real data for real improvement rather than make things complicated with wrong data or not well collected data. So I think we're moving in a direction where benchmarking is going to be much more reliable, much more important, much more practical. And as I said, SoComfort, we have a lot of experience and we're so keen to continue with benchmarking. Of course, we use things like Intertanko, Intermanager, wherever area for benchmarking, we're happy to participate. And I think benchmarking is one of the future line of development of ship owner and ship managers anyway.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, we're also very keen on benchmarking, but then again, the reliability of data is sometimes
it's still issue, but it's in my opinion.
Okay, then Michela, I have a question for you. I mean, with regards to what is your view on how are the flags in generally coping with the new digital era? I mean, how do you see it? And Philip or Konstantinos, if you want to add on that, please do so as well afterwards.
Yeah, for sure, there are some flags that are much more advanced than the others. For example, in terms of remote inspections or with electronic logbooks, we've seen that Liberia is one of the flags. It's pretty advanced, but actually, I see that they are quite, say, of course, cautious of what we are developing. We have to ensure that what we are doing is safe for the ship. It ensures the same reliability of information and the same compliance. So, for example, again, for the electronic logbooks, going through the approval of every individual flag. Every flag has its own requirements, but there in my opinion, from what I've seen, they're all keen to move, even if little steps to the digital evolution and the digital journey. Okay, Philip, you have any?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it is a competitive market for them as well. And you know, if class societies we're all pushing for performing remote surveys safely. You know, if there's a good technical justification, I personally haven't seen flag.
Micropay. Let's look at it.
Sorry. Oh. And yeah, I mean, as well, we've seen sort of a wave of approvals come through for digital certification from various flag administrations now. So there's obviously this wave, and I think the flag administrations are working well with class societies on that.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Konstantinos?
Just to add on what Michela and Philip said about remote surveys. Today, the remote surveys we are performing have a more limited scope, I would say. So we don't go ahead and perform the complete periodical survey, let's say the annual survey. First of all, because there are technicalities, technical issues, mainly connectivity. Sometimes it is difficult to maintain connectivity for the whole period of the survey, and even at specific areas of the ship, like the engine room or other parts that need to be inspected during an annual survey. And the second reason is there is a reluctancy right now, also from the flags, to permit the complete periodical survey. So for every remote survey, you have to ask for the acceptance of the flag. And today we're performing more limited surveys, for example, occasional surveys, or for the scope of postponing a periodical survey, which was quite common, especially during the pandemic, that we could not have our own physical attendance. So these periodical surveys needed to be postponed.
Okay, Konstantinos, thank you very much. Nicholas, I think we have surpassed our time with 7 minutes.
Yes, we have, but that was a very interesting discussion. So, Erwin, thank you to you, and thank you to everybody for a very vibrant and insightful discussion. We have with us George Tsavliris, who is our conference chairman for a 5th year in a row. And maybe I can make it news breaking that I would like to sign him up for next year as well, so we can continue the tradition. So George, by the way, to all the panelists, a big thank you. Tremendous panel. And Erwin, thank you, especially to you for all the coordination. And I'd like to turn it over to George to provide some closing remarks for the whole forum.
Nico, thank you. And I'd like to thank all the panelists. And I'd just like to, on a more colorful note, Nikos Borozonis is a very, very daring man. He has taken a lot of brave risks in terms of having me here for 5 years and actually suggesting that he'd like me here for the 6th. It's a great compliment. I would never say no to Nicholas, because I enjoy these conferences more than any of the other ones we always attend, for the simple reason that I find there's more synergy. I find that there's more sincerity in the way people speak. I don't think that all the speakers which I've heard before today, that I haven't heard anybody who's saying, quote unquote, what he should be saying, but he's saying what they really believe. And I think that's very, very important for conferences, because in everyday life, we have to maintain a certain attitude, which is a compliance with our company policy. And sometimes, I don't say that we're becoming dishonest, but I find that with childish enthusiasm, which is a triggering mechanism of all these conferences, we say things and we extrapolate, and we have the chance and opportunity of expanding on topics, which does nothing more but actually make all of us, and including me, by the way, because I'm still in my learning curve, we walk away from here knowing something more than what we knew when we started. During the conference, we've had Vasilis Dimitriadis, who is the minister who actually gave the opening remarks. We've covered so many topics with the aspects of turning ship owning based in Cyprus, the reinforcement of Cyprus registry, crew issues, global management issues, We'll talk about digitalization. In the health, we're trying to be modernized and actually getting ourselves to become compliant with the 21st century. But one word I'd like to mention is the following. We've all talked about transition and being progressive. We've all, probably most of us during this conference, have actually gone through the process of vaccination. Well, I'd like to remind you that vaccinations we've taken have also been in emergency approval. So effectively, I think to draw a parallel between the process of vaccinating ourselves to protect ourselves for our future and life for our children, in shipping, and what we're saying and what we had during the course of the day, I would like to draw a parallel. Let's just focus on things which can be done within the near future. And I don't think it's very, very wise to go too further afield, although I'm all for the idea of being imaginative, but there are some aspects which have to be left on the back burner so that we can ensure that we actually cover issues and matters which are number one priority. In my personal view, the first priority, and I always mention this, is the human factor. The crews which we're running our ships, we should protect them, look after them, and do everything possible to ensure that their difficult task is more amenable and that they have the confidence in us or the people who are really employing them to ensure that at least we eliminate or diffuse most of the risks and tasks and hardship they go through. The second, I think, main issue is what we've talked about during the course of the day is environmental issues. Again, we have to ensure that we maintain a pace in the same way as I mentioned that Rome is not built overnight. We have to maintain a process in cooperation with the full synergy with regulators, but ensure that we're holistic in our approach to make sure we go step by step and achieve what is achievable rather than what can be a wild guess from having mild figures in the future. I just want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, there's a summit in Glasgow in November, the decarbonizing and shipping. It's on the auspices of carbon, the global carbon levy, COP26. Now, November is around the corner. It's only a few months away. And quite frankly, taking into account what we said today, I think one of the most important issues, besides, as I mentioned, the protecting our crew members and trying to overcome the major hardship that they're going through the process of the coronavirus, which seems to be around and will be with us for quite a while, when I gather. We also have to ensure that we maintain a synergy with the balancing act, with the regulators, to ensure that they can see us as being working together, to actually work with an absolute form of cooperation to ensure that we can actually go ahead and achieve what is achievable. And with a reminder that the owners or ship owners are not there to manufacture the ships. They don't actually make or produce the oil from the refineries. They're there to be the end users, the operators of the ships, which are effectively, there has to be a synergy and an input, and a very substantial input from the ship owning and the engine manufacturers together with the oil companies. Now, on that note, I'd just like to, again, thank you very, very much for your participation. On the digital side, which you just ended up with, I've got a colleague here who reminded me that NYK is now beginning to pay their crew with digital currency. So effectively, that's something which is progressive, which shows us that there's certain things which are happening and are being a quite revolution in our day-to-day society, in our world. But on the other hand, the idea of talking about unmanned ships is, again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll go back to old-fashioned mode. I say, in any ship you've got, whether you have radars, any kind of navigation equipment, I'd always like to see that. I think invariably we all want to have a couple of pairs of eyes on the bridge. I think that's one which we can't do without. On that note, Nico, thank you very much. Thank you and your team. You made me feel so comfortable for once more, even though, as you know, digital organization is not really my cup of tea. I'm more of a hands-on person who traveling around the world and seeing people face to face. But I'd like to thank you very much. And thank you all for the enthusiasm, your professionalism, and the passion which you contribute towards this conference. Have a great evening, and thank you very much. Thank you.
George. And again, I would like to thank Erwin, Michela, Petros, Konstantinos, Philip, Peter, Michael, Oleg. Thank you to all of you. Let's have a great day, the rest of the day, and again, tremendous thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.